often comes with challenges that many people never see, including medical expenses, missed work, reduced hours, and financial uncertainty. Through education, support programs, partnerships, and future initiatives, we're working to help bridge that gap. Today's webinar is part of that mission. We believe education can create opportunities, spark new ideas, and open doors to greater financial stability. We're also excited to share that this is just the beginning. We are actively working on developing additional webinars, educational resources, and programs for our community, so be sure to stay connected with us for future events and opportunities. Just a few housekeeping items before we begin. Everyone will remain muted during the presentation. If you have any questions for Emily, please feel free to drop them in the chat throughout the webinar, and we'll do our best to answer as many as possible at the end if time allows. Before we get started, take a minute to get comfortable, grab a favorite drink, a snack, a notebook, a pen if you'd like to take notes, and settle wherever you feel most relaxed. This next about 30 minutes to an hour is for you, and we hope you leave with practical tools and encouragement you can use moving forward. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce today's speaker, Emily Hertzberg. Emily is an award-winning patient advocate, speaker, writer, and content creator, and an ambassador for psoriatic arthritis, psoriasis, and chronic illness. Having lived with psoriatic arthritis for more than 20 years, she has transformed her personal journey into a powerful platform for advocacy, education, and support for the chronic illness community. Throughout her work, Emily has been featured in magazine articles, health publications, podcasts, and national advocacy events. She is the founder of the Psoriatic Arthritis Warriors movement on Instagram and the founder and administrator for the Psoriatic Arthritis Warriors Facebook group, where she continues to help build a thriving and supportive community for patients around the world. Emily was also honored by the Arthritis Foundation as a Mission Impact honoree, recognizing her dedication for raising awareness and creating meaningful change for people living with arthritis and chronic illness. Today, Emily will be sharing practical insights on navigating the workplace with chronic illness, including accommodations, workplace rights, communicating with employers, and advocating for yourself professionally. We're incredibly grateful that she is taking the time to be here with us today and share both her expertise and living experience. Please join me in welcoming Emily.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here today. I am excited to speak to you all and share a little bit of my knowledge, insights, and just a little bit about what you can do to help advocate for yourself. So I am going to share my screen. Just give me 1 second. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes? Okay. Thank you. Perfect. Okay. Let me go back to this. Sorry. First time doing a webinar. Going too fast. Okay. Perfect. All right. So this webinar is balancing work, rest, and the unpredictability of chronic illness. We're going to be navigating productivity, pacing, and self-advocacy. We're going to be talking about living and working with fluctuating health and sustainable balance in a very unpredictable body, which we are all familiar with. So the first thing I want to do is start with a question. So in the chat, if you can, I want you to type in, what does balance mean when your symptoms change daily? And what is the hardest for you to balance? Is it work, family, rest, or the unpredictability of your condition? So if you can,
I'm sorry to interrupt. I can't see the screen.
You can't see it?
No. Hold on. Do you want to try doing it again?
Sure.
Looks like some people in the chat can't see either.
Oh, okay. Here we go. Does that work?
Okay, yeah, I see it now.
All right, perfect. Technical difficulties. Okay, so what does balance mean when your symptoms change daily? And what is the hardest for you to balance? You can type in the chat, is it work, family, rest, or the unpredictability of your condition? Ooh, a lot of us are putting work for work. Yeah. A lot of us are putting work. Yes. So work is definitely probably one of the hardest things to balance when it comes to everything else, as well as number four, because the unpredictability of your condition impacts all of these areas, right? So it's not just one thing in particular that you're trying to balance. You're trying to balance all of these things, not just work, family, resting, and your condition, right? So we're going to kind of delve right into um, the reality of chronic illness, right? Chronic illness is often invisible. It's very unpredictable. Our symptoms fluctuate every single day. No 2 days feel or look exactly the same. And our energy levels change daily, right? We're not going to be, super busy one day and able to do everything and then crash. So pain and fatigue are not always visible to others. And people often look at us and are like, you don't look sick. You look perfectly fine. Like there's nothing wrong with you. Right. And we're often judged because we don't look sick most days, or we don't look like we're in pain or agony or limping, but we really are. And on our good days, we feel like, Superwoman or Superman, and we can do a million things. And then all of a sudden, it's like, after we get all those things done, it's like, oh, I'm going to have a flare, or, oh, I feel like I'm getting sick, or, oh my God, I have a new joint that hurts today, or I'm feeling pain somewhere. So there's always consequences for us when we push ourselves too much, or we have those good days, right? And rest is actually a medical necessity. It is not considered laziness at all. And that's why I have the battery pictures there, because we could start, on the green, and then by 3 o'clock, we're already in the red, and we need to recharge, and we need to take a break, and we need to rest. So the myth of pushing through, this is something that, is really important. And a lot of people don't realize that the reality of chronic illness is, um, you know, for us, we try to push through. We try to ignore sometimes our symptoms. We try to say, hey, you know what? I'm just going to keep going because I'm feeling okay today. So you want to make sure that, society often does celebrate endurance over sustainability. And we kind of need to stop doing that. All right. Many people with chronic illness are conditioned to ignore their pain or minimize their symptoms or just try to overperform to avoid judgment, right? Especially at work. And overexertion for us can trigger flares to happen. It can make our symptoms worse. And it's going to take us, a while to recover sometimes. And, we might be crashing. So productivity culture, it rewards burnout, but for us, we can't afford burnout, right? And chronic illness really requires us to pace ourselves and not punish ourselves. And if you're ignoring your body today, I always say this, like it's going to cost you tomorrow. So you got to listen to your body. That's one thing I always want to stress to anyone I talk to with a chronic illness or multiple chronic illnesses is like, listen to your body. And if you need to rest, don't feel guilty for it. You need to rest. And don't forget that rest is productive. Now we got to understand our energy limits. So for those of you in this webinar right now, if you are familiar with the spoon theory, this might be a little good refresher for you. If you've never heard of the spoon theory, this is a super important theory. And the key points of it, I'm going to kind of go through them. I'm going to show you a little visual. So the spoon theory is all about energy budgeting, right? It's like, how many spoons will it take for me to get up in the morning and get ready? How many spoons will it take for me to get to work? How many spoons will it take for me to function throughout the day and get what I need to get done at work? So healthy people often assume that we have this like unlimited energy. And when in reality, chronic illness requires us to have this conscious energy allocation, right? So we literally have a cost for every task that we do. And with chronic illnesses, we have to require prioritization of those things. We can't just put, one thing in front of the other and do whatever we can. We have to really, kind of prioritize what we need to do, like first, second, third, fourth, etc. All right, so some examples of energy costs. Let's look at the visual here. All right, the spoon theory here. It says, how will you spend your spoons today? So one spoon is like getting out of bed or brushing your teeth or getting dressed, right? Two spoons could be like reading a book or texting your friends back or picking up some food or using the computer at work. Three spoons might be taking a shower, right? Taking a shower sometimes is exhausting for us with chronic illness. Like sometimes for me, that's like 4 or 5 spoons. Like I'm done after a shower. I'm dead. All right. Cooking a meal could be 3 or 4 spoons. Just lightly cleaning the house, maybe studying, maybe trying to complete 2 or 3 tasks at work. Okay. 4+ spoons is literally like going to a social event, running errands, going to a doctor's appointment, maybe really cleaning your house, doing a good exercise routine. So we don't have that many spoons for the day. All right. We might have like 10 spoons to give for the day. And a lot of people who follow this theory will say, I don't have the spoons for that. And they literally mean it. Like, I don't have the energy to dedicate to that task. So it says at the bottom, which I love, a reminder that a random unforeseen flare-up could cause you to spontaneously lose all your spoons at any time, right? Flare-up happens, I'm going to have no spoons. I might have a half a spoon for the day, right? And if a flare-up happens, I got to listen to my body and I need to rest. So you want to make sure that you're budgeting your energy. This way you can have enough for just your basic tasks that you need to get done for the day. And I just love that theory. And it is actually created by Christine Mezzarandino. So I want to make sure her name was in there. All right, so now let's talk about balancing work with chronic illness. All right, one thing that is not easy to do. I'm going to quickly tell you a story. I am a 20+ year art teacher. I teach 450 students a week. It is exhausting. It is so much for me just to get up, in the morning and get to work and just function at work some days. And just getting through a day with, 5 or 6 classes is a lot. So I am definitely familiar with balancing work and chronic illness because I've been doing it basically since I've been diagnosed in my 20s. And I've been teaching over 20 years now. So one thing I want to talk about is, working while managing your symptoms, right? A lot of us will mask our pain at work. We don't want to fear or appear unreliable, right? We manage meetings, deadlines. We're managing exhaustion and fatigue. We're trying to be flexible with our schedules, and it's super important to not hide the fatigue or hide our symptoms, but we do it well. We mask ourselves well. We're like great actors. Someone will ask you, how's it going today? I'm okay, a little tired, or everything's fine, I'm good. People have no idea what we're going through at work, right? Because again, some of us don't look sick. We have invisible illnesses. So I want to talk about some workplace accommodations because I have several at work, and they actually are wonderful. They're very supportive in my school where I work, and I'm actually able to get several workplace accommodations. So some examples of accommodations are remote work options. So instead of physically going to a place to work, you can work from home, which is great. And if you're having a flare or you're having a bad day, getting up and not having to drive to work and get dressed and have to actually function and be around people is awesome. So remote work is a really good option. Flexibility with start and end times. Maybe your mornings are really rough, or maybe you have a lot of doctor's appointments. Try to talk about starting your day a little later and maybe ending it a little earlier. Sometimes you might have to take a leave from work, and a lot of jobs will allow that, a medical leave or a family medical leave if there's an emergency. Also, sensory controls for the workplace environment. There are tons of those. Temperature control and adjustments, lighting changes, supportive furniture, assistive technology, and mobility aids. One thing I need to function at school is an air conditioner. I'm on biologics, and any fluctuation in temperature change, as we know, causes a flare or will make my arthritis really bad. So I actually got a medical accommodation. I got a note. I got approval. I have an air conditioner in my classroom that I control, which I love. Another thing I have at work that's an accommodation is I can't stand for prolonged periods of time. So instead of doing like bus duty or lunch duty where teachers have to stand for like 30 minutes, I get to do a sitting duty where I actually sit in the hallway and I monitor the bathrooms. So it's those are just some examples of accommodations based on the job I have. And there is the Americans with Disabilities Act, if you're not familiar with it. Any employer with 15 or more employees must provide reasonable accommodations. All right. And these changes or modifications allow individuals to perform essential job functions, provided the adjustment does not cause the employer an undue hardship. Right. So I'm going to quickly go through the request process if you are going through this right now or know somebody who has a chronic illness. They do have workplace rights. I'm lucky I have a union and we are protected. And my main thing is you got to document everything, right? The request process is you're going to initiate the request. Okay, it can either be you or on behalf of someone. And you're going to simply let your employer know you need an adjustment or a change at work for a medical reason. All right, you don't have to use the phrase reasonable accommodation or mention ADA. You could literally just say, I need a workplace accommodation. Okay, and what I did was I told my doctor, my rheumatologist, she simply wrote the letter for me. She said, due to my patient's medical condition, she needs X, Y, and Z at work or an accommodation at work for this. And then she signed it. So the ADA requires a collaborative dialogue between you and your employer to identify your limitations or determine your effective solutions. All right. Again, your doctor can handle all of that. And if you're not sure, you can actually look it up online, like type in your medical condition and then type in, what different types of accommodations you're allowed to have. All right. And next up, you need medical documentation. You can't just request an accommodation without having that medical letter. So if you have that letter from your doctor, that solidifies your need for an accommodation. So your employer may request documentation verifying your disability. Again, you don't have to say what you have wrong with you. Obviously, HIPAA laws. Mine just says due to my medical condition. So they don't really need to know what's wrong with you, and they shouldn't be asking you that. So make sure that you're protecting your privacy and not giving out that information. It could just literally say, I have a medical condition, or this patient is under my care for a medical condition, and this is the accommodation she would like to request. All right. And the need for the specific accommodation requested should definitely be in the letter. And that's something you could talk to about with your doctor. Your doctor might say, hey, I have other patients that work in an office or work at a school. And, these are the accommodations they ask for. So if they're not familiar, again, do your research, look things up, and always advocate for yourself. I'm so big on that. You have to advocate. And here we go. Communication and self-advocacy. All right. At work, you're definitely going to request those accommodations, especially if you are suffering or you're having a bad flare up. And those accommodations should carry you through the entire year. And every year I actually submit a new letter. This way my employer knows that my condition is ongoing. It's not curable. It's not something that, I wake up one day and I'm cured and I can, stand for prolonged periods of time or deal with, changes in temperature and stuff like that. So you want to make sure you're staying up to date on that when you're requesting those accommodations. All right. Also, you want to explain those limitations. So if they're reading the letter and they're not really sure, just be like, hey, I can't stand for prolonged periods of time, or I'm on medication that causes, fluctuations in my condition. So I need to be in the air conditioning. That's it. You don't have to over explain, and you don't want to go into too much detail. All right. And to also set those boundaries. All right. And self-advocacy is a skill. It's not selfishness at all. And at home, okay, you should be asking for support. You should not feel guilty about asking for support. And you want to have those honest conversations. All right. If you need help with something, don't be afraid to ask. I'm someone who doesn't really like to ask for help, but you could say, like, I want to participate or I want to, hang out with you guys or participate in this family event, but I need to kind of pace myself. Just give me some time, stuff like that. And at work, you can say, I can, complete this task more effectively with some flexibility, maybe around a deadline or something, or flexibility around, my office space or something like that. So don't be afraid to advocate for yourself, speak up, ask for what you need, because 9 times out of 10, you're going to get it. You're going to get those accommodations, and you're going to get what you need at work, especially when you're going through a flare or a medical condition or chronic illness, because it's so unpredictable. So unpredictable. All right, let's talk about the emotional impact all of this has, because we can't talk about chronic illness without all the emotional impact it has on everything. All right, so chronic illness can create hypervigilance around symptoms, fear of disappointing other people, fear of not living up to your expectations or other people's expectations. Our identity changes. Sometimes our diagnosis may change who we think we are, or who we look like, or what we think we are. And we have sometimes that loss of independence, and that's so hard to deal with, right? So we have to normalize the grief that we feel. We are grieving our former selves, our former bodies, everything that used to function well for us, or the body we used to be able to depend on. It's so different now. And you might grieve your previous abilities, your energy levels, your spontaneity, career goals you might have had, and your entire social life. And it's just it literally takes your entire world and turns it upside down, right? So that mental load of unpredictability, it causes so much anxiety around the flares. You never know when a flare is going to happen. We can't plan for uncertainty. It's just going to happen. And, sometimes we feel guilty for canceling plans. And if people aren't understanding of that, guess what? They can check it at the door. They don't need to be around you. Don't surround yourself with that negativity. All right. We also grieve like our previous capacity. And we are constantly, dealing with burnout from constant adaptation. So we should not be normalizing emotional exhaustion. All right. If you're exhausted to the point of like you can't do anything, you need a break. You need a mental break. You need a body break. You need to literally just tell people, I need some time. I need to rest. I'll get back to you. Let's quickly talk about flares, because we all have those, especially an unpredictable chronic illness. I probably have a few a year. So flares can be triggered by just about anything. And sometimes you get one and you didn't even do anything wrong. You didn't deserve it. So flares can be really sudden. They can be really scary. They can be triggered by stress, overactivity, overdoing things, maybe being sick, run down, the weather, or sometimes it's nothing. You did nothing at all and you woke up and boom, a flare. So a good day for us does not mean that we're cured, right? And, people often blame themselves for flares, even though they're unavoidable and they just happen. So I quickly made this little visual of what flares really feel like for us. We have severe fatigue with a flare. We have mobility issues. We have inflammation. We sometimes will get brain fog out of nowhere. We can't remember what we're doing, and it's so frustrating. And then the sleep disruption. It's like we can't sleep soundly, or we're constantly getting up and we're in pain no matter what we're doing. And for me, the fatigue that happens during a flare is like, it's relentless. It won't stop. It just, you want to sleep, but you can't sleep. And you're so exhausted and you can't get through the day, but you can't sleep. So it's like your body is fighting its own self, as we know. And flares happen. It's not your fault. And I want you to keep remembering that phrase, like you didn't do anything wrong. It just happened. And it's not your fault. So don't blame yourself when a flare happens. And you just need to get through it. And sometimes when you're in a flare, you're in a really dark place and you don't know what to do and you don't know who to turn to. And that's why like my online community is so important, because people who have flares, they'll go online, they'll communicate and say, I'm having a really hard day, or I'm dealing with a flare, and they just want to vent. They want to talk to people who get it, right? Our family and friends don't understand. You don't get it till you get it, till you have a chronic illness. So it's really important that when you're going through a flare, reach out to somebody, talk to someone who gets it. You don't want to be alone in a flare, because you could go into that really dark place. All right, let's talk about rest as healthcare, because rest is productive. I always say this to everybody I know who has a chronic illness. All right, rest is not only productive, but it prevents us from having our symptoms get worse. And recovery is not being lazy. It's actually helping your body, and it pauses us to kind of improve our sustainability. It really the boundaries kind of protect our health, and it helps us support nervous system regulation, and our inflammation levels get reduced, our energy can get restored. We get that cognitive recovery in the brain. So you don't want to distinguish rest from doing nothing, right? It's productive. So a lot of my followers will say that when they rest, they feel guilty. When they rest, they feel lazy. When they rest, they feel judged. And that has to stop. Like, that stigma has to totally stop, because rest can include you just doing what you need to do and taking that break. And we want to kind of replace rest versus productivity with rest supports productivity. And sometimes you got to take that sick day from work, and you got to take that break, because you know what? Your body is screaming. And if you don't, you'll regret it, or you'll flare, right? Something's going to happen to your body. And I really want to stress this. There is a difference between resting and isolating yourself, because some of us are resting and are really not doing what we need to do. So let's quickly talk about this. Rest is choosing recovery. It's protecting your energy. All right. You're being quiet without disconnection from the world, but you're still staying connected in manageable ways, right? So rest is like your body recharging, your energy is getting conserved, your nervous system's recovering, and you're taking those intentional pauses. So resting is healthy and necessary, but you don't want to become on the isolated side of rest, okay? You don't want to feel alone or unseen. You don't want to lose connection. All right, you don't want to start avoiding people, interactions, and you don't want to become like really depressed and anxious. All right, because isolation means disconnection, and people can't support you and help you if you're pushing them away. And you'll lose that support, and you'll feel really alone and down and out, and you won't be engaging in life anymore. So you want to avoid isolation. All right, we're encouraging that healthy rest where you're still staying connected, like, hey, I need a break today, or let's make plans next week, or let me get back to you about this work event. That kind of rest, that kind of intentional pause is healthy, because you're still connecting, but you're saying, hey, I just need a break. So try to not get into that isolation part, because that's really the deep, dark place that we don't want to be, especially with chronic illness. So let's talk about building a sustainable routine, because we have to have that when we're working and we have a chronic illness. Let me tell you, I definitely have a routine every single day, and it helps me get through the day. And it's literally just like basic. It's nothing crazy, right? So here are some practical strategies for balance. All right, you got to pace your activities. If you know you got to complete a few things at work, make a little to-do list and literally pace out those activities. What's going to take the most time? What can I do really fast? What is not going to require a lot of energy or time? What's something I can get done and feel good about myself? All right, you got to celebrate those wins. You also have to schedule the recovery time. Maybe you have a big work event coming up, and it's going to take a lot of energy to get through that, right? Or a big presentation, or maybe a paper due or something like that. All right, you want to schedule your recovery time. This way, maybe you need a day or two after that to just relax and chill. You can't go from like one crazy thing to the next, to the next, to the next, because you're going to burn out and you're going to literally crash. All right, you got to prioritize the essentials. If you have to, use a mobility or accessibility tool to help you get through that. Break those tasks into smaller steps. Maybe there's a big thing you need to do, but break it down. So you know what, I'll do this part today, and I'll do the rest, tomorrow and the next day. And you want to create flexible expectations for yourself. Don't say, hey, I'm going to get this all done today. I'm going to be a rock star. No. Prioritize what you need to get done. That's what you're going to dedicate your energy to for the day, not everything. Because guess what? Things can wait. And if there's a deadline, you say, hey, I need a little more time, or I need you to be flexible. Speak up and advocate for those things. All right, now we're going to talk about community and support, because without this, we wouldn't be able to function at all, especially at work or in real life. So no one should be navigating chronic illness alone. And I know a lot of people do, and they don't turn to people. They don't communicate with others. They don't even share what's going on or like how their day is. And, there's really so many great online resources that you can check out. There's support groups in person and on social media and Facebook. There's online communities. You can actually talk to a therapist, which a lot of my chronic illness warriors do. There's actually tons of patient advocacy organizations. There's workplace allies and family education. So I just put my Instagram on there really quick. And I do have a Facebook page if you have psoriatic arthritis or you know somebody in the chronic illness community. They can join or follow me on Instagram. Great resource tools that I constantly post about chronic illness, not just psoriatic arthritis, but other chronic illnesses as well. And now we're going to talk about how to support someone with chronic illness. And you might want to screenshot these or share these with someone who, who is not supporting you or doesn't know how to support you. Because sometimes, guess what? The caretakers and caregivers don't know what to do. So instead of helping you, they choose to either do nothing or they're not sure how to approach it. All right, the first thing they need to do is listen without trying to solve everything. So people with chronic illness, we often spend a lot of time explaining or like defending what we're experiencing. So it really helps if people believe us. They listen to us. They let us describe our symptoms without minimizing our pain or what we're going through. And, you want to avoid comparisons when you are describing, especially if they're trying to if they want to understand you, they should be avoiding comparisons. Like, oh, everyone gets tired, or, oh, everybody, has to take a sick day once in a while. And then, they should be asking what kind of support, they want before giving advice. So simple questions work well. Like, what was hardest for you today? Do you want help brainstorming or just someone to listen? Or like, what would make this week easier for you? Like, especially at work. Like, if people are understanding at work, it's like the best thing ever. I'm very fortunate. I have people at work that support me. They'll ask me how I'm doing. If they see me struggling, like, how are you feeling today? Like, just a question like that goes so far because they're listening without judgment and they believe you. All right. Also learning their limits and fluctuations. And our employers need to know this too, right? Many chronic illnesses are inconsistent. We might seem okay one day and not able to function the next. So, you got to try to interpret cancellations, fatigue, brain fog, or reduced communication as lack of interest, and flexibility matters. So you want to make low pressure plans, normalize rescheduling things, like things can wait. And you want to avoid that guilt around those energy limitations and offer them concrete help. Like, instead of saying, let me know if you need anything, all right, that can be kind of hard to act on. You could say like, oh, I'm going to the store. Do you want groceries? Or do you need anything from the store? Or can I drive you to your doctor's appointment? Or do you want to sit with me during your treatment? Or do you need me to go to the pharmacy for you? Like, a more like practical general offer or a question like that it's amazing. And it reduces the cognitive and physical load that we carry all the time because we feel like burdens when we ask for help. Also, you want to understand the invisible symptoms. All right, we go through pain, exhaustion, nausea, dizziness, sensory overload, a lot of medication side effects, and brain fog, and they're often invisible. Like, you can't see when someone is nauseous or dizzy or in pain or going through a flare. We might not physically be showing anything. So someone may look fine while struggling significantly, And you want to believe those symptoms. That helps build that trust. Without that trust, you can't rely on those people or talk to them. And you want to stay connected consistently. And what I mean by that is you want to check in with them. Sorry, you probably hear the ice cream man going by. You want to text them without pressure to respond. You want to check in on them and be like, hey, how are you doing today? Or how are you feeling? And, send that invitation, even if they often decline or we cancel the plans. Like, still invite us because that still feels like we're included. A lot of people like don't engage with their friends or family and kind of like, you know, stay to themselves, and then they don't get these invitations and then they're like upset. But it's like you want to be able to communicate with your family and your friends and still get invited, even if you say, hey, I can't make it. And you want to maintain normal friendship topics too. Like, stay connected, have that core group of friends or support people or the people around you that get you, that you trust, that believe you, that listen to you. That circle is so important. I've lost many friendships over the years for friends who just didn't get it and, would make me feel guilty for canceling or would like make a comment that I couldn't go skiing or something like that. Like, yeah, I have limitations. And if your friends or family don't understand those, you just don't need to be around them. And you can just literally say, I'm good. I got this. I don't need that help from you. All right. We got to support the mental health too. So chronic illness can affect identity, independence, finances, relationships, and our mood. And depression and anxiety are common companions. You don't need to become our therapist. And the most useful things for us are patience, reliability, emotional steadiness, encouraging professional support if they want it or need it. Don't say, hey, you need a therapist. Say, hey, I see you're struggling. Like, maybe you want to talk to someone. And, you got to take care of yourself as well. If you're a partner, family member, or caregiver, burnout is real. So, sustainable support usually means like keeping on your own routines and support system, setting those reasonable boundaries, asking for help when you need it. And you really can't pour from an empty cup. You got to take care of yourself first. So if you are a caregiver of somebody with a chronic illness, you need to take care of you because you can't take care of someone else if you're not okay. So it's really good to prioritize your needs as well as the person you're taking care of. Don't forget that you're a person too, and you need to really help yourself before you can help anyone. So this is going to actually become a resource, a clickable resource for you all at the end of this that we're going to send out. These are just a few of my favorite online resources, like my go-tos, like places I go when I just need to kind of look things up or check things out or, look into patient advocacy or read some stories about what people go through and just really get information and learn from others. So we'll make this a clickable resource, like I said. These are all great tools and resources. You might want to just screenshot it if you want, or take a picture of it so you can remember the names. Some of these are Instagram accounts. Some of these are websites. Some of these have blogs and patient blogs on them, but they're all really great resources for chronic illness and just, getting through the day. So I want to talk about reframing productivity and, resting is responsible. And, your challenge is that worth equals output thinking, but productivity can include that recovery. So, your survival itself requires effort. Adapting is resilience for us. We are so resilient dealing with these chronic illnesses. That's why I started the whole warrior movement. Resilience is like a warrior mentality, right? Like, we just keep going. We don't stop. And, slowing down is not failure. Resting is not failure. Chronic illness changes our capacity. It doesn't change our value. Your diagnosis does not define you. It's part of your story. It's not your whole story, right? And you do not have to earn rest, which is so important. So in conclusion, we're almost done. A couple of key reminders. Balance for you is going to look different every day. All right. And your flexibility in that is your strength. Listening to your body matters. accommodations for you are going to create that access and that adaptability, and you to be able to do what you need at work while still getting that support that you need. And community is going to help you reduce isolation. Because remember that rest is different from isolation. And living with a chronic illness requires courage, adaptation, and compassion, especially towards yourself. Because guess what? You're doing the best you can. And you can't be so hard on yourself. And you can't beat yourself up every day for all the things you didn't get done. Because guess what? They're going to get done. Your health is your priority, especially the mental health. And if you can't get something done, it doesn't take away the value of who you are as a person. So I just want to thank Kaylee and Lily for having me host this webinar and speak to you all. And I did share on here my Instagram, my LinkedIn page, my Linktree, which has a ton of resources, and that's my email address as well. And does anyone have any questions? Any questions at all? I will check the chat if there's any questions. I think we're good. No questions. And I also have.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Question? Oh, sorry. And there's an additional slide I have for some other resources. But again, these resources are also on my Linktree. So you could always check them out on the Linktree as well. I'm going to stop sharing. There we go. Perfect.
Thank you so much, Emily. That was incredibly informative, and we truly appreciate your sharing knowledge, experience, and practical advice with us. We, on behalf of everyone at Bridging Illness to Income, thank you for helping us continue our mission of supporting individuals with chronic illness as they work toward greater financial stability. Before we wrap up, I would like to thank you all for joining us today. As a nonprofit organization, Bridging Illness to Income relies on community support to continue providing free educational events, developing new programs, and helping individuals living with chronic illness overcome financial barriers. If you found today's webinar helpful, one of the best ways you can support us is by sharing our website with friends, family members, healthcare providers, employers, or anyone who may benefit from our mission. You can learn more about our work at www.bridgingillnesstoincome.org. And if you're interested in supporting our efforts financially, donations of any size help us continue creating resources, educational programs, and future initiatives for the chronic illness community. And before you go, don't forget to follow Bridging Illness Income on Instagram to stay updated on future webinars, resources, and programs. And also, as Emily said, Psoriatic Arthritis Warriors on Instagram and Facebook as well. And show some appreciation for her sharing her time and experience with us today. And thank you all again for being here. We truly appreciate your support, and we hope to see you at another future webinar. Thank you, everyone.